Wednesday. Wednesday, right? Yes, Wednesday.
Yes.
How are your holidays?
How were your holidays?
My holidays are great. Yes, for sure. Went home, saw my parents. How about you?
It was awesome. I just got back from Key West, as you can tell by this lovely tan. Actually, not. It's just our filter, but
Listen, redheads do tan. Look at this.
Yeah.
This is the way we tan, man. No,
I
that's
guess
awesome. So where in Key West were you?
We were right in smack dab in the middle of Key West. Well, kind of
What
on
island?
the beach.
Oh, on the
Yeah.
actually.
Oh,
Okay.
Key West.
Key West.
Yeah,
Okay.
the main.
Yeah. It's awesome. Were a lot of people there this time of year?
No, because of COVID.
Well, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. You never really know. So.
Yeah. Tell us in the chat how your New Year's was and your holiday was.
Yeah, it's crazy to think it's already 2021. You know, everybody kept waiting for this day, and then it was just sort of like, oh yeah, it's 2021. Nothing has changed. Like, you know, same world.
And it was kind of like a lame,
It was kind of a
transition
lame.
into 2021 because, nothing was going on because of COVID.
It was hard to like peace out 2020, you know. But we had lots of peanut butter and we had lots of
my
champagne,
gosh, yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
what we did. So it was actually quite fun. So today, one of the things we're going to talk about is financing for PA school because we've gotten this question from a couple people, and so we're going to talk about that in a second. If you don't know us, we are pre-PAC. I'm Beth.
I'm Katie.
And our goal is to get you accepted in PA school. So try to get you to be the best applicant you can be, whether that's working on interview skills, editing that personal statement, just giving you tips, reviewing your files. We've got a book, all kinds of stuff. So that's our goal.
And just a little bit of background, but we've both been PAs for 10 years, going a little over 10 years, and we have over 10 years cumulative experience in academia working at a PA program. So we've reviewed the CASPA applications, we choose who comes for an interview, and we interview and choose who gets accepted and who doesn't. So we have lots of experience in this field, and we saw the students make the same mistakes over and over, and they were great candidates, but it cost them a seat in the program, and we don't want that to be you. Hi, welcome. So, yeah. This is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, after years of that, we just decided like, hey, there's some people who need a little help to get to that PA process.
Yeah.
Not just in PA school, you're going to have mentoring, you're going to have advising, but the students how to get from undergrad to graduate school, because despite the fact that PA is like Forbes top 10 and there's over 250 schools, there's not a lot of like actual really good stuff out there. Because most people, the only experience they know is what they got in PA school. They know what they did, but they're not really sure exactly why or how. They just know that they were blessed with a yes. And that's how we were, 10 years ago. But now that we've worked in academia for a few years, now we're like, we understand why they require that or why they ask that question.
And from your side, you just don't know what we're looking for when we're accepting students by a CASPA application. You don't know what we're looking for as we're going through the application or what we're looking for in an interview. So, that's why we love doing this. We love working with you guys. You're awesome. And our job is to get you to PA school.
Yes.
So today?
Yes, so today we're going to talk about school financing. And so PA school can get expensive. So that's number one. But the good news is that if you look at like the Bureau of Labor Statistics or whatever, the average salary for a PA is over $100,000 now. And so the one nice thing about having is you will be able, if you pass school and you get your board certification and everything, you will be able to pay it back. But still, while you're in it, I know how it is. It's stressful getting all those student loans, having all those big numbers, right? So there's a couple things you need to do.
Pile up.
They can pile up, especially when you're talking about some PS programs are like 24 months and some are more like 30 something months, and so that can be a long time. And then you have to wait until you pass your boards, you have to get a job, it takes 3 months to get credentialed at some hospitals, you've got to pay all this DA fees, and so there can be a lot of fees associated, and it might be 6 months or so after graduation until you actually get your first paycheck. So it can take a while. So we are totally cognizant of that. We're just going to let you know some tips. What's the first tip, Katie, about schools?
Yes, so look at the program's cost before you actually apply to the program.
Yes!
Because
oh my gosh.
it would be the worst to actually show up for an interview, get accepted, and then realize that you have no way to pay for the program and that it's way outside of what you anticipated paying. So take a look at the program.
And it's funny, we ask people what they look at, when they apply to PA programs. The number one is usually geography or they know someone or whatever. And we'll be like, well, how much does that program cost? And they're like, well, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things you could look at. Not that it's like a make or break deal, but you have to realize that some programs are significantly more expensive than others. Some are longer than others, which means more tuition dollars. That means longer time before you can get out and practice. Some, like the school I went to, actually it was twice as much for out-of-state students as it was for in-state students. So I went to University of Kentucky, and at that time, if you're an in-state student, you had one tuition rate, and if you're the out-of-state student, you had almost double tuition rate. And so a lot of my classmates actually moved to Kentucky and actually worked there for a year to gain Kentucky residency. So when they applied, they could do that. Because think about it, it's half the cost. At least it was then. I'm not sure what it is
Ooh,
now.
that is like a risky
Yeah.
jump. Like they were really wanting to go there.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Like for me, I was able to get a scholarship that waived that out-of-state tuition, and so some schools have that. Those are mostly like the non-private, what do you call it, public schools.
Yeah.
Like the non-private ones have sometimes have tuition waivers or graduate school, and it wasn't through the PA school, it's through the graduate school. And so when you're applying, just look and see if they have any graduate school scholarships available. If you were like maybe valedictorian or if you had a certain GPA, some schools might have scholarships. I think some private schools do, but they're a little bit. Usually a little bit less for the private school. So anyways, yeah, number one tip is actually look at the tuition, right? Because if you're going to pay all this money, you have to pay CASPA, you have to pay to send your GRE scores or your CASPA scores, whatever they require. You know, you have to pay for your undergraduate degree. You have to pay for supplemental application fees. You have to pay for, I don't know, maybe a plane ticket pre-COVID, like lots of money. So don't apply to a school that you're like, oh wait, I don't want to go there. Like afterwards you realize it's too expensive. Number two, a good way.
Duration of the program.
Yes. Right.
So as you go through PA school, there's certain durations of PA school. Some are longer, some are shorter, and it's only really by a few months. But take a look and see if they actually charge by credit hour, or not charge is the wrong word, but if you're paying by credit hour, or if you're paying for just the program in general. The other thing is tip number 3.
Yeah, so tip number 3 is FAFSA, right?
Yep.
And so those are your student loans. So those of you who got FAFSA for undergrad are probably really familiar with it. But basically, those are government loans. And so you can go to FAFSA.com. Sorry, I had to think about that. School is a while for me. But yeah, so you go to FAFSA.com. It's totally free. And you just fill out your information, and then you can get loans from the government. So that's what like the government student loans. Now there's 2 types of student loans, okay, that the government gives. They get subsidized and unsubsidized, and they'll say you can have so much subsidized and so much unsubsidized. And then you have to, when your school starts, you have to say, yes, I want all of this money. I only want part of this money. You know, you don't have to take the whole thing, but they will only loan you a certain amount. So you always go with the subsidized first. So you always take all the subsidized first before you move to the unsubsidized. Because basically what that means is you're not going to have to pay interest on it while in school. And so for your 2.5, 3 years, whatever you're in school, you don't have to pay interest on the subsidized, but you do on the unsubsidized, okay? So FAFSA student loans. Now, they will only let you borrow so much, okay? So maybe you've got kids, maybe, you know, you have more expensive, maybe it's really expensive school, expensive place you're living, New York, whatever, and you need more, then you have to go private loans, yeah? And so those are can be a little bit more tricky. Because sometimes the interest rate on private loans is either A, variable, or B, is a lot higher. So just make sure if you're going this private student loan rate, kind of make sure your rates are locked in. You know, when do they due? For example, like the government loans, like it used to be you didn't have to start paying until 6 months after graduation. That gives you time to like, you know, get a job and all that kind of stuff, settle down. Some of it can be income-based repayment, meaning you pay a certain amount of your income, or some is just like, hey, you pay X amount a month. And so there's tons of stuff, and we're not loan officers, so just like, you know, you can look into that. But just think about how you're going to finance PA school, because it's expensive. You think applying to PA school is expensive? No. PA school is expensive.
So I actually remember what tip number 2 was supposed to be.
Oops. Tip number 2.
Because Beth, I got put on the spot, and I was like, oh gosh, what was my tip number 2? So I said duration of the program, so yes, look at that. But also look at clinical rotations. So do they send you away for clinical rotations, or do they try and keep you nearby? Also look and see if you can set up rotations near where you have family, so that you're not paying housing in all these random spots. So remember, you have to pay for that part of your clinical rotations. So this program has to set up your rotations, but if they don't have anything nearby, then you may find yourself going, you know, anywhere from 200 miles away to, you know, across the U.S. You just don't know. There is a option at most programs that you can recommend or suggest, like, hey, I really want to go here, or I have family here, or whatever it is. But look at rotations, because you are going to be paying out of pocket for housing and electricity and just living expenses in general during rotations.
Yeah, so I actually went away for most of my rotations. So I actually gave up my apartment in Lexington because I knew I was going to be at all these smaller hospitals, and so then I stayed with like friends of friends of friends, and on people's couches, and some AHEC housing, and then I stayed with my parents for a couple. I went overseas and did some overseas rotations, and so like I just gave up my apartment and I would sleep on people's couches, or if I had to, like a really cheap motel bed.
We had
the
a
night
student
before.
that slept in his car for an entire rotation.
I
We
was
don't
better than
want that.
No. I was cooler than that.
Yeah,
I slept on someone's couch.
Well, as clinical coordinator, we didn't find out about that until like the rotation was almost over. That's not cool. Like you don't need to be living out of your car.
Right? Yeah. And so actually what a lot of our students would do, so like we had quite a few students, and so maybe a couple of them kept their apartments, but they would go away for rotation. Well, they would just let someone pay their rent and sleep in their room for that 6 weeks. Because they were here, you know what I mean? So like there's ways too that our students would be like, hey, you want to come bunk with us and pay us $500, or I'm going to Florida for this rotation. If you're coming back and you don't have an apartment, you can stay at my place. And so there are ways like that too. But those costs do add up. Cost of living, where your program is. So like
that's a good one.
if you're in the middle of San Diego or something, your cost of living, no matter where you live, probably is going to be way more expensive than Kentucky or whatever. And so just factor that in, and they should factor that in when they talk about total cost of programs. And so most PA schools, if you go on their website, they'll say like this much for computer, this is the gym stuff, this is a technology fee, and they should give you all the fees, and they always put in their cost of living, commuting charges, housing, that kind of stuff. I don't know how accurate that is. I think they just go with an average. But a lot of our students will team up and they'll be like, okay, all three of us are going to share an apartment, because usually a 3-bedroom apartment's way cheaper than buying like a 1-bedroom, right? You only have to pay a couple extra. So anyway, so they'll all get together, usually Facebook or something, and they make it work out. And so those are just some good things to think about. But rotations are a little different. If you're going to be in different cities or even different states, it could cost you a little bit more. You might have to do like one of those long rent hotel things.
Yeah.
So anyway, so those are just some options. So just to recap, make sure you check tuition, right, and full tuition. Make sure
Duration
you check
of the program,
duration.
which is actually meant to be clinical rotation, living expenses.
Yeah, duration, clinical rotation, living expenses.
FAFSA.
FAFSA for the government loans. You can always go private loans if you need to. Remember the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized. And a lot of you probably have this in undergrad too. And now, so if you still have loans from undergrad, when you go back to school, you can put those loans in forbearance or whatever they call them. So you're not going to have to start paying back your undergrad loans if you get back into school. Okay, so if you're a full-time student, you'll be able to, they'll still accrue interest, but you'll be able to not have to pay those back. So it's not like you're trying to take loans and pay loans at the same time. You'll just have them added, and when you graduate from grad school, then you'll just owe on all of them. Okay.
So if you guys have any questions, DM us. If you need help with CASPA application review, we are more than happy to do that. We know exactly what programs look for because we've worked at a PA program for years. We do mock interviews, so check us out.
We're having so much fun with those.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The mock interviews have been really
They're
fun.
awesome. That's amazing people.
And super excited. This past week we did several mock interviews with students, and super excited to hear if they got accepted.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Yeah, because we just love getting to know you guys. We get to know
Yeah.
you so much better when we look over your application and ask you questions and kind of think about your answers. Why did you answer this way? Why didn't you answer this way? So it's just it's fun for us to really, really get to know you guys.
Yes. So have a great night. We hope this helped, and DM us, and you're awesome. Keep up the great work.
It's your year, guys.
Woo-hoo!
2021.
2021.
Bye, guys.